Welcome. We are going to talk through SEO Canvas 1, which relates to step 1 of minimum viable SEO. If you remember rightly, the reason we do minimum viable SEO is we want to test whether we are actually going to be creating content with keywords that are searched for. This gives us more of a chance to rank for SEO. So I'm going to dive right in to talk about how we look at Canvas 1, which is the content keyword hypothesis statement canvas. Basically, I've developed a scenario. Basically, what we're going to be talking about is a local council content designer. The local council has asked them to do some content about a new trial scheme to recycle coffee pods. So in this scenario, what you would do is go, okay, my workplace has decided that I need to make this content about recycling coffee pods. My job as a content designer is to test whether this is the right terminology to use, how can I get the most organic search traffic to people. And so what you're going to do is you're going to start by going, okay, this is my task. I'm going to come up with some terms. So what I've done here is come up with recycling and coffee pods and Nespresso, which is a branded version of coffee pods. So the audience for this would be a local council ratepayer style audience. And the audience wants this content because the council has customer service data that residents have been making phone calls about recycling for coffee. Council did some research before they announced the trial that finds there's high use of coffee pod machines in their local area. And this audience is mostly ratepayers aged over 40. So what I'm going to start doing is moving into the free tools to sort of look at how we can validate this idea, because really we're saying the keywords I'm guessing my audience or persona will use to find this content could be this, but we're only guessing that. And what we want to do is test that hypothesis using the free tools to just check that there is search demand. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to what's called Google Autocomplete. Now, Google Autocomplete is this box that appears underneath a search window. And basically what Google Autocomplete does is it's there to help people not have to type out all the terms when they're doing a search. So Google love using this, and you can infer, there's no hard and fast rules on this, you can infer that these generally searched terms that Google's suggesting as autocomplete. And what the reason Google gives you that information is that it wants you to report inappropriate predictions, because it wants to know what people are really searching for when we're looking about the context of the term coffee pods. So you can see in Australia, coffee pods Woolworths, coffee pods Coles, coffee pods Nespresso, so that was one of my hypothesis terms, coffee pods Nespresso compatible, coffee pods Aldi. You can see all these are very buy-centric or shopping search terms. So people want to buy these products. But right down the bottom, you've got coffee pods reusable, which is kind of relates to coffee pods recycling. So let's just have a little look at coffee pods reusable and see what comes up. So in my search engine results page, I have a Keyword Surfer browser extension turned on, which means I'm just getting some extra search data, which is useful for someone who does SEO all the time to see what's happening. And what Keyword Surfer is showing me is that, wow, okay, this is kind of interesting. You can see that in the last month, keyword coffee pods reusable has gone up massively. So the council's clearly onto a good thing. This is kind of, there's some interest in that terminology. But you can also see that here are some other keyword ideas. Reusing Nespresso pods. It has quite high search volume of 1,300 a month. Pods for coffee machine has 9,900 search volume a month. And that really, you have to realise, is what's called a header term or a main term. That doesn't mean that my article for recycling coffee pods in a local council area is going to have that much search demand around it. But you can see that when we get into reusable, like that's still quite high, 4,400 local monthly searches. But so there's demand. That's basically what this is showing. Interestingly, on the search engine results page, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 ads showing at the top. And then I get to the first result, which is called Top 10 Reusable Coffee Pod Questions, Everything You Need to Know. And what's kind of interesting about this is that it's a 2020 article. It looks like it's from an Australian website. And there's some quite good organic traffic, it's telling me. So this is Keywords. Keyword Surfer is estimating that this URL actually ranks for 58 terms. And that's the important thing to remember about keyword research is there's no one golden keyword. Usually an article that ranks well ranks for quite a few terms, and that's very, very common. That's what you kind of want. You can see in total, this is what this tool is saying. I don't know how true it is because they all aggregate their data from different sources, but as long as you're just comparing like to like, you can get a good idea. It's saying this article gets 1,600 hits a month. Who knows if that's true? Maybe Crema Joe can tell us. And it actually ranks for 765 total keywords on the whole website. So that particular URL ranks for 58 different keywords, yet the Crema Joe site ranks for 765. So clearly they're doing quite well out of this article. And even with Keyword Surfer, I can go and have a look at the top pages here, and I think it's going to ask me for credits, so maybe that's not such a good idea. Oh no, here we go. And it's showing me the top 1,000 pages for cremajoe.com.au, and you can see which virtual machine is at the top, everything you need to know about switching to reusable coffee pods. That will be very relevant for my content design, how to reuse Virtualign, etc., etc., etc. So this is just one glimpse I've got by doing this hypothesis testing, which has now shown me about the content I'm going to write, in my view, as a content designer. So the reason I love doing this hypothesis testing is for this reason. So that's just looking at Google autocomplete. So let's go back to Google autocomplete and I can show you some other terms. Autocomplete does work best on a big screen so you can see more. So let's look up recycling in general. And you can see recycling centre. So most people are looking for a recycling centre when they type in recycling, and they're looking at locations. So that's kind of the location-based intent around the word. So recycling is probably a good word that matches the intent of the content we're talking about. So let's type in recycling coffee, and you can see recycling coffee pods is the top autocomplete suggestion there, followed by recycling coffee cups and recycling coffee grounds, etc., etc. So this is pretty good. This is a pretty good to take recycling. Actually, I'm going to take recycling coffee pods and just have a look again at that. And you can see there, the top organic results, so these are advertising results, is about Planet Art recycling near me. So that's a pretty good term. I'm actually going to go and put in my canvas. So I've got recycling there. So here's some of my ideas I had. Recycling coffee pods, that's definitely a yes. And then another idea, why don't we try upcycling coffee pods and see if that sort of results in something different. This one's showing us that the Planet Arc story it ranks for 38 URLs, etc. It gets three monthly hits, which isn't a lot, which means the demand is relatively low. But let's go back and try the upcycling terms and see what happens with upcycling as opposed to recycling. So you can see with autocomplete, most people are trying to work out what the meaning of that term is, which means it's not super clear. That means it won't have a lot of demand. Upcycling coffee table, upcycling coffee cans, upcycling coffee grounds relates probably to coffee pods, but you can see coffee pods is way down here. So let's just go and have a look at that and see what it's showing us. So on this SERP page, it's getting us lots of images because obviously Google's massive data crunching knows people like looking at images of upcycled goods when upcycling. So that's what the SERP results. Then it's also showing us these little question and answer snippets, which this is where they take the highest ranking terms and just show you the top result. This is probably where people linger the most in this article, which is why Google now shows it. So Nespresso provides a free recycling service. Oh, okay. As a designer, I should know that. Maybe I need to link out to that as part of my content creation. And what can I do? I can either bring them to a collection point, drop them off at the Nespresso boutique, or fill a recycling bag and give it to the postman. Oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. As the content designer for this local council, I wonder if my local council realises that Nespresso have this scheme because they're trialling one. Is there something wrong with this scheme? You can see now I've got some more info about it. So I'll go back to my canvas and I'll go, yeah, upcycling coffee pods is probably quite a good term. I'm going to keep those two. And then I'm going to look at Nespresso recycling scheme, because how will that relate to my content from my council? So then what we're going to do is we're going to try and create some of the phrases that we'll want to use in the content. So my council, I've just called it Suburb Y as part of the council. I've made a little phrase saying, can you recycle coffee pods in Suburb Y? And we're going to sort of use that question to explore it a bit, this canvas a bit more. Which are the most sustainable pods or brands of coffee pods? And then I'm trying to work out, well, what does my story need to really give the audience? Because this research is helping me out, right? Well, really, the main takeaway is coffee pods can be recycled in Suburb Y, or can coffee pods be recycled? That's kind of the main takeaways. Yes, can I do it or can I not? And then we might want to have a second takeaway, which is how to save coffee pods for recycling. Do you need to rinse them out? How should you collect them? And then we might also want to have the addresses and places. So we would go and have a look at Google Trends to explore this a little bit more. And we want to make sure we're in Australia. So we just click up to the little country sign. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to search for recycling coffee. No, we'll just search for coffee pods first. Search for a broader term, so because part of this is about understanding the demand around it. So we're going to go to coffee pods, and in the past 12 months, we'll see a trend line for coffee pods. It's kind of interesting. So in the last 12 months, overall search has kind of gone down for coffee pods. And interestingly, in Australia, South Australia has the most search demand for that, which is kind of interesting. Northern Territory has the least. And you can kind of see the related queries and what's rising and what's not. So Makita coffee machine pods have risen 200% in the last 12 months. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe Makita is a brand I need to add to my content list there to see if we need to mention some of the branded terms for the article. Now, if we look at coffee pods over the last 5 years, you can see, well, we had a massive spike in December and January, and I bet you that's related to Christmas shopping and retail buying of coffee machines. You can see over a longer trend line, the regional trends kind of true, and that the related queries are pods, urban brew. So it's a lot of branded search, people trying to choose which machine and which pods to buy. The other really cool thing you can do here is go, okay, well, let's look at coffee pods versus recycling coffee pods to just get an idea of how much demand there is around recycling coffee pods compared to buying coffee pods. And you can see it's pretty small, and, it sort of goes up a bit over the past 5 years, but yeah, probably not great. So why don't we add recycling Nespresso coffee pods? Let's see if this even comes up. That might just be too narrow. That would be my guess. And you can see, it's pretty low compared to overall coffee pod search, but it gives you an idea and an indication, and that's what this research is all about. So once you've kind of had a little play with all the terms, you can kind of come back and go, okay, so does this content hypothesis look right? Well, actually, I don't know if Nespresso is going to work. I'll leave it in for now because I just want to, and I'm going to go, okay, recycling coffee pods, the benefits might be a phrase. main takeaway is coffee pod recycle near me might be a key phrase. And, maybe saving coffee pods for recycling. And you can see these are long phrases, so they're not really keywords as such, they're phrases. And so this canvas I can now save before I move on to my next step, to go to step 2 of minimum viable SEO. So go to the next video if you want to know more about that.